Hello and welcome to 7 Minutes of Inspiration with 7. You're watching me, Latasha Guy. You're either watching me on my Facebook, YouTube, or you're catching snippets on my Instagram, or all of that. But either or, it is a pleasure to be able to speak with you on today. I am so glad that I've stayed committed to the mission. As I stay committed to the mission, more and more and more continues to be downloaded and poured on me. I was very excited about posting today. I was very excited about the things that I've been journeyed through to try to figure out and make sense of some of these things that come in my head sometimes. And so welcome to 7 Minutes of Inspiration. If you're not a subscriber, please make sure you subscribe. There are additional videos that are out there that can be found on YouTube. And make sure that you hit the like or the bell. Hit the bell. So that way you can be notified of new postings. Today's topic is the Titanic. And so I don't know where it came from, guys. Sometimes I don't know where this stuff comes from. It just pops in my head and I begin to do the research. And from a research standpoint, I begin to see the spiritual, the physical, the natural, and I just try to make it all make sense. In a point of encouragement. So may your soul be encouraged on today. But on Tuesday, I don't want to quote, maybe Monday, Tuesday, I start thinking about the Titanic. It is a movie that I seen at a very, very young age. Can't say I was really captivated by it. It was a love story. Very good movie, but it didn't stick in my mind, and it hasn't popped back into my mind until this week. And so I'll just share a little bit of what I blogged about in regards to the Titanic. I was listening to an encouraging word that reminded me, people, again, boats, people only sink when the situation on the outside gets on the inside. Therefore, within itself, begin to speak life. How many times are we reminded that we have too many things around us that are draining us? They're literally sinking us, guys. And so I have to stop and ask myself, God, why? Why were there random moments where the past always seemed to return? Out of nowhere. Sometimes attached with baggage like the prodigal son. For those that know the word, the prodigal son, he came back with a lot. But again, he was able to be fixed. Baggage like the prodigal son. Why were there moments in my life where it seemed like everyone needed to be fixed? You know, I kept seeing and feeling crossroads. I was feeling that very, very heavily on last week. Crossroads. And so I felt tainted at times. And then other times I felt freedom. I felt freedom because I was able to look through the lives of others and just see how much God had spared me from. And please forgive me if I'm looking down, because I want to make sure that I'm directly giving you my notes. That day I spoke to my husband when God began to give me the Titanic, that I was ready to enter into a land of the free and to be delivered from a barren land, in a dry place, spiritually, physically, financially, and even with relationships and network building. I wanted to be delivered from a dry and barren place. And so God was giving me the signs. He was giving me the signals that it was far time to cry out for a change and to let go of all of the things that were attempting to sink me. And so when I even began to think about that, guys, I was like, okay, I have to go do research on the Titanic. Why? I don't want to do research on the Titanic. It was a good movie, but what does that have to do with what you gave me? And so, you know, some of the notes that I jotted down for today, when you even begin to do research on the Titanic and some of the things that caused the accident of the Titanic, I came across response time. The response time was not there. And so when I began to think about people being like a boat, it's not what gets into us. It's not what's around us that sinks us, but it's what gets into us. So I began to think about, what does our response time look like when we know we're embarking upon some things, seasons, changes are going to take place. Like, what are we doing in the meantime to make sure when we hit some of those rocky places that we don't let what we're going through truly get into us and take us to a whole nother place. And so it also talked about, you know, reportings, and again, this is all done through research, stating that the captain received numerous ice warnings by numerous ships about large amounts of ice in the area. How many of us, we've been warned that something we're trying to do is not going to work, something we're trying to do Somebody has already been there and tried it, and they can tell you the results of what they've been through. Prime example, a lot of time as parents, a lot of times when we get older and we're talking to those that are younger than us, like, baby, don't do that. That's not going to work. Mama has tried it, daddy has done it. It never kind of works out for your good, but still wanting to, and then not realizing until you have gotten into some of these situations, and these situations have begun to get into you. It's like you're like a shipwreck going down. And so, again, not heeding warnings was a very big thing that I took from the whole sinking of the Titanic, and how we as people can be like boats. We don't heed warnings when we know that danger is ahead. It stated that it stated that it posted lookouts to specifically watch for icebergs. How many times are we zoning in on what it's going to look like, what that situation is going to look like, maybe how it is that we could possibly get burned? You don't know sometimes. I'm telling y'all right now, I'm reading this book. You get a chance to check it out if you can. It's called The 48 Laws of Power. That book, you have to look at it with the open eyes, but looking at it from an open eye perspective, there are tons and tons of warnings that are around us daily that we sometimes just don't take heed to. And so I think it is very important when we start getting some of the red flags, the warnings, physically, spiritually, mentally, maybe you're even getting in dreams. Take heed, seriously. It also talked about the urgency. If he would have put forth an urgency, this may not have happened. There could have been a different course of actions that could have happened. Just like in our lives, sometimes, a lot of times, if we would take heed, be urgent about the things that we need to do, be urgent to get the things away from us that will attempt to sink us, getting into a better space mentally, physically, health-wise. I'm getting older, so I try to be very cautious about what I eat. Trying to make sure that I'm cutting back on certain things, heeding the warnings when I don't feel well, when my head is hurting. There's probably things I'm putting into my body. I may be overexerting myself. Even they said, they spoke about once the captain crew were aware that it took a few moments, even getting the engine to respond. A lot of times once we've gotten into some of these situations, it takes a while to get out. And so that's why it's very important that we move with urgency, so that nothing physically gets into our ship that could make us sink. We truly are that powerful that we operate like a Titanic, guys, and we have to be careful what we allow to get in our ship. And so we have to operate with that sense of urgency. We got to make sure that if we've got people that are looking around and keeping those eyes out for us, they're walking in wisdom. They've been through some things that maybe we haven't been through, that we're heeding the warnings and that we're listening. It talked about through research that if the Titanic had stood still, it would have survived at least until the rescue ship came, and it could have, saved so many more lives. When that hit right there, I said, how many times are we rushing to some of these destinations that had we just waited for that rescue, for that true moment when it was time to launch that purpose, launch that plan, walk into that moment, take hold of what it was that belonged to us, that we would have been so much better. But a lot of times, even when we look in terms of the Titanic, we began to move in a state of fear. We begin to move in a state of anxiety, thinking maybe this is just the way I got to do it for now, because you know what? I just can't stand to wait any longer, and we just don't know what was truly coming for us. So he warning on that, Sometimes we need to truly wait until our rescue boat comes, because jumping on board with the first thing we see coming does not mean that that's what's going to really help us to survive. And causes, it talked about causes through research that the iceberg was not spotted because the lookout binoculars were missing. How many times, and I just talked to my husband about this, and he was going real deep, and so I told him I can't go that deep right now, but I'll from a surface standpoint. And when we begin to think about when they spoke about the lookout binoculars missing, and because the lookout binoculars were missing, they weren't able to see the iceberg. I tried to put that in a physical standpoint. A lot of times we get caught off guard with situations, circumstances that we're not ready for. And so it is very important that we always have our guards on don't have my glasses on. And, you know, from a standpoint of having my glasses on, I need my glasses on to see. I need my glasses on to be able to read certain things that are from at a certain distance from me. And so it is very important that we have our spiritual glasses on, that we're paying attention to signs, signals, those things that may be coming at us as heated as warnings, that we don't need to allow this to get in our ship. This is not the right time. This might not be the right opportunity. But I mean, God truly laid it out this week when I began to think about the Titanic, because I'm like, I'm not riding on the Titanic. I don't see how that has anything to do with, you know, me getting this vision of water. You know, it even talked about research I was doing on yesterday. It even talked about, I want to make sure this is still recording. It even talked about the amount of compartments that ship was built to be able to survive, as far as if they were even punctured. It says 4 compartments would have allowed it. Even if they were punctured and water began to flow in, it would have survived. But however, through research, it states that it was 6 that were actually punctured by hitting the iceberg. And so we don't know how much we actually can withstand that would take us out. We pray daily that God will sustain us, that he will give us peace that surpasses all understanding. In the end, though, we have to be careful what we allow to get into our ship. It has been a pleasure to speak with you on today. I know that I was, you know, kind of here and there with the analogies of getting water into your ship. It's not what it is that's around you that's sinking you. It's sometimes what you allow to get in. Steer away from the negativity. Stay away from the hard feelings. Steer away from the ability to want to avenge on certain cases. You know, put it in the hands of the Almighty and trust him to avenge and work it out. Don't allow some of these situations to get into you. They literally will torment you, sink you, and take you out. It's been a pleasure again to speak with you on today. I leave you as always. Refuse to live less than your best, because that is what you have been called.